PA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 10 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Our next guest has a topic that you could spend hours on. It's such an interesting topic. It's kind of getting out of your body and going places and seeing, what else is out there in the universe. It's kind of like those near-death experiences you've heard about, and I'm so inadequate at trying to explain what it is. However, I'm really interested in it. And there was a doctor I was listening to on an ebook, and he was an atheist or an agnostic or whatever, didn't believe in God, didn't believe in afterlife, but he was a psychologist or whatever, and he knew that sometimes some of the issues that we have are dealt with better when we can somehow regress and go back in time to when we were children, and those things can actually, just going back to an old memory, can help fix whatever we've got going on. Mm-hmm. And he said, exactly. And some of his people, some of his patients actually went back to a previous life. In fact, many patients went back to a previous life, and he always thought, well, this can't be real. But then they started coming back and telling him things about himself, which they couldn't have known otherwise. And they were also being healed of whatever problems they had. And he said, well, that doesn't make sense. You can't imagine something and be healed from it. It has to be a real memory in order to be healed from it. So with that, we've had Dr. Susan Nicholas on with us before. She wrote the book, The Duality of Being. I hadn't listened to that podcast, that book I was just talking to you about before, but I have now, so I'm a little bit different perspective. So we have Dr. Susan Nicholas back on. Doctor, it's an honor to have you. Good morning.
Good morning, Larry.
And where are you? Where are you calling from?
Today you're reaching me in Atlanta. This is where I live, at home. So
the near-death experience we hear about or watch videos about, first of all, I'm not saying they're all real. Maybe some of them are made up, but for the most part, people really have this experience, right?
That is true. And I think to your earlier comments and to this question, Larry, the question is, what is reality and what is real to us and what we perceive as not real. And one thing that I wanted to kind of maybe clarify for you and your listeners is what we experience in our dream state or our out-of-body experiences or childhood regressions are indeed real. Memories, even though we catalog them as in the past, we have to remember that we are living in a time construct here on Earth, and what truly is happening in the broader aspect of the universe is happening at once. And so it's certainly possible, and indeed it happens every day, to go back and revisit what we call memories, which is really revisiting another moment of our existence. And we can perceive that as being in the past, but really it's still going on, particularly if that memory or feeling is still residing in our energetic matrix.
So one of the patients, I guess, that is in the book did not have a near-death experience, and she could do what you can do. She could do it at will, and so the doctor kind of made the assumption or the conclusion, I guess, that you have a near-death experience because you need to know that, and in her case, she didn't need to know because she already knew it. Isn't that interesting?
Well, if I could speak with that psychologist or psychiatrist, one thing that I would say is that anything that you feel, your feelings are true live entities. It's energy at its core, just like we are pure energy at our core. And that energy is not created or destroyed. It is only transformed. And that is what these patients were doing. They were going back, revisiting that energy and transforming it. And sometimes the transformation just comes from an acknowledgement and a higher understanding, more an exalted perspective on what occurred in your life or even a past life.
So as a doctor yourself, have you been with a patient who had a near-death experience?
Oh, yes, yes, of course. I experienced many of these anecdotal reports when I was practicing surgery. In the last part of my surgical training, I was in cardiothoracic surgery, where, when patients are on bypass, their heart is stopped and they are not breathing. Mm-hmm. And of course, when we revive them from that experience, patients can have out-of-body experiences. This also occurs in the emergency department, but definitely with open cardiothoracic surgery. And I saw it in children when I was even earlier in my training in medical school, when I was an intern at St. Jude Children's. I would hear children express this type of energetic travel nearing the end of their physical lives.
Well, it seems that children like that, if they come from good homes, they have good memories. But as a person grows up into an adult, sometimes they have painful memories and they try to suppress those.
Well, good morning, Robin, and thank you for that. Just this Friday, I'm publishing my first children's book on consciousness that deals with this the exact same thing that you're talking about. It has really nothing to do if we grow up with a good family or not. When we come to Earth, we don't come here for free. And even children that have all of their basic needs, physical needs met, can have emotional issues that they're here to overcome in this life. So it doesn't, growing up with, with awesome parents and resources doesn't excuse you from doing what I call your soul work. We all have this, we're all on an introspective journey. We are all embodied. We're embodied souls having a human experience. And in that contract that we get to come here and live on Earth and experience this physical third-dimensional reality, there's work that we do to mature our eternal souls. And these children have to do it as well. What we don't know or understand maybe completely as a society is that many of the pains and emotional burdens that we carry into adulthood, in fact, originated in childhood. Oh. And that is why we really have to target the children to let them understand who they truly are, that they are both physical and non-physical, that they do have these emotional bodies which are pure energy, and instill them with the tools of how to transform and release those dense energies.
So, I've often wondered, I guess we all do this, what am I really here for? And the one constant through my life has always been to be there for the underdog. I did this when I was a kid. The kid who was being bullied, I'd be his friend. The kid who was the bully, I just had no use for him. I had nothing to do. I didn't want to have anything to do with him. And so I always thought that, the don't be a bully message, kind of to simplify it. I could have been a policeman. I could have been a pastor. I guess I'm a radio host in part because of that. And I often wondered if maybe some of us have, like you say, a mission to do, but yet many different choices of how we might be able to manifest that mission.
That is correct. And all of this is really, it's encoded in our very own DNA. It's these abilities, our purpose. You spoke earlier about traveling out of body and having transgressing past lives. This all is encoded within us. We have it, but it lies dormant or latent within us until we awaken it. So yes, if you want to know what your true purpose is, what you were born truly to do, what are your true powers, this requires what I call the process of introspection, to awaken that within you. And that is what, is the conscious awakening that we are talking about.
I said in the beginning, I knew this was going to happen. The interview is so short for this type of a topic, but I want to make sure that we are fair to the book. What does the duality of being help the reader with?
The duality of being is an adult book to help individuals realize their true selves, who they really are, to investigate their lives, their relationships, their finances, even finally death, and how energy is involved in all of these things and how it can be transformed to the highest possible energy so you can reach the highest potential in this life.
I love the book, by the way. I remember the last time you were on. Doctor, I found the book on Amazon. I have a copy of it here if I have a listener who would like the book. Do you have a different website you'd like to recommend?
Sure. My website is susannicholas.org, where you can find The Duality of Being and my first children's book on consciousness entitled Two Parts of Me, I Am More Than My Body, which really addresses children kindergarten through fourth grade, ages 5 to 10 years, on these very same concepts of their soul and how to transmute dense emotional energy.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor, for being on the show with us today. I wish we had more time to talk.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Robin.
You're welcome. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Here is your 1-minute news brief. Florida lawmakers begin the final 3 weeks of their annual 60-day session today. The House has 84 bills on their calendar. Among those is a 26-page bill aimed at strengthening the state's ethics laws to keep elected officials from profiting by seeking investment advice from lobbyists. The Senate is taking up bills that would prohibit high schools from telling students they can't wear military uniforms at graduation ceremonies. A 75-year-old Alachua man is dead after he was attacked by an exotic bird he was raising. The bird is called a